welcome to Menopause Rescue. I'm Dr. Polly Watson. Midlife women are often caught up in a sea of symptoms. Too often, they're overwhelmed by the lack of support from mainstream healthcare. They're inundated with so-called experts who are selling solutions which may lack credibility. I'm a Menopause Society certified gynecologist with both traditional and functional medicine training. I'm here to guide you through this transition and help you decipher the facts from the fads. Armed with credible information, I hope you are empowered to rescue and restore your health, making the second half of your life your best. Welcome to Menopause Rescue. I'm your host, Dr. Polly Watson. And today we're going behind the scenes. Kate and I were doing a menopause talk at a women's health event a couple weeks ago. And someone spoke up and said, I want you to go home and talk to my husband about what my body's going through. So I thought, well, I have a husband. So this is my husband, Ben Watson, and we're going to talk a little bit about how maybe partners can support women as they're going through the transition. So Ben, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and talk about how we met?
Sure. My name is Ben Watson. I'm a professor at NC State. Polly and I met in 1999 on New Year's Eve. Is that right? 1996.
We met a long time ago. We've been married for almost 25 years.
97.
We met in 97 when it was about to be turning 98.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just coming back after, I guess, not even a whole year of my first job as a young professor. I was going out to a dinner with a friend, and Polly was there kind of semi by chance, right?
I was the add-on girl to two couples on a New Year's Eve dinner, and my high school boyfriend and I were sort of breaking up, and so that was sort of over, and so I got added on, and I was like the fifth wheel, sort of. I was the fifth person.
But you body checked the lady who had been chosen.
Ann Claxton was supposed to be Ben's partner, and I saw Ben, and he has these beautiful brown eyes, and I kind of shoved Ann Claxton out of the way so I could sit next to you at dinner.
Yeah.
And
we had a great time talking, and then I rescued her from a not very pleasant dance at one point.
It was New Year's Eve, so we went to dinner, and then there was a big party, and there was someone who was having a really hard time figuring out that I didn't really want to dance with him. And so Ben interceded.
It took a long time, though.
But you eventually did.
And then I dreamt about you that night.
You want to say that on the podcast?
Why not? It was a good dream.
So the thing that was fun about Ben and I was that he lived in Canada and I was in medical school at the Medical College of Georgia. So we were really far apart.
Yeah.
And we did distance for a year and got engaged, and then distance for another.
We wrote crisscrossing love letters.
Yeah. We were a lot of love letters, a lot of analog communication. That was back in the time where you had to pay for long distance. So that was hard. In 2000, we got married. I graduated from medical school.
2000 is when we married.
2 weeks later, we got married. 2 weeks later, we started residency. Right. So it was kind of a whirlwind. So
yeah,
it
was a long engagement, though.
Yeah. So in our almost 25 years of marriage, we've had 5 different cities, 2 kids, 2 dogs.
Really 5? I haven't counted.
Yeah.
But
we had a lot of moves. Yeah. And anyway, so that's a little bit about Ben and I. I feel like perimenopause for me, I'm a little bit like a chihuahua on the ceiling, just personality wise. I'm a little bit round up tighter than banjo string.
Polly is high energy.
And Ben is Yoda. And so he's really calm, which kind of helps balance this perimenopause transition out.
We complement each other because Polly livens things up.
Well, that's
what I
generous.
need. Yeah. She's really good at celebrations.
So when I'm having a really rough day, and what I mean by that is the world is really hard right now, right? Like politically, things are really hard. We've had just devastation, natural disasters, Western North Carolina, Florida. There's a lot that's really hard in the world right now. And when you're having hormonal change on top of all of that, sometimes you can have these mood swings, sort of like a teenager, where it feels kind of irrational. You burst into tears for no reason, you snap for no reason. And one of the things that I guess I love about how you respond to me when I'm having a bad day is you respond with curiosity and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, like, what will you say? Like, if I just like fly off the handle or like throw dinner on the table and like, God
I'll
damn it,
say
just eat
things
it.
like, how are you doing? Or did you sleep okay? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, he usually responds instead of saying, hey, you're being a total jerk or,
Mm-hmm.
check your attitude. He doesn't respond with judgment. He responds with curiosity and compassion. And so that helps a ton. I think the other thing that everybody in my family does, so we have two teenage boys,
Uh-huh.
is that we all know that everybody sometimes needs some distance to regroup, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes if it's a really bad time, I'll go for a walk. If it's a really bad time, I'll go to yoga. And sometimes the kids will even say, hey, mom, do you need to go to yoga? Which is kind of a loving way of saying, like, things are getting a little intense over here. Maybe we could
Mm-hmm.
release the pressure. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think if you're a partner and you're trying to support someone who's going through really big changes, responding with curiosity and with empathy is usually going to get you in a better situation with your family system, with your relationship with that person, better than with judgment and
Yeah.
criticism.
I would expect the same thing from you, right? I would rather have empathy and curiosity than blame and what about me's, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that comes up in menopause transition is sleep becomes disastrous. And
Oh.
so
Mm.
um, getting your sleep interrupted is just not on the table. And so, as a gynecologist, and I'm talking with women all day long about menopause transition and sleep, partner disruption is a big part of that conversation. And so, I thought this would be helpful just to kind of talk about how we negotiate this because when you're getting your sleep is already getting interrupted by maybe having to get up to go to the bathroom more, maybe you're having some night sweats and you're getting your sleep disrupted because you're hot, maybe your cortisol is too high and you're waking up because you're anxious. If you're also managing your partner snoring or your partner being on a completely different schedule, it's just then you're up 5 times at night and sleep quality
Mm-hmm.
goes to crap. So can you talk
Right.
a little bit about how we manage that?
Um, well, I mean, two ways. One is you can align sleep with your partner, so you go to bed when they do. Or you can, if you for some reason can't do it that night, then you go sleep somewhere else, and that's okay. And then also, I help a lot. We help each other a lot in sort of ramping into the sleep, right? There should be like this whole approach to sleep, things getting calmer and calmer until your eyes are closed and you're asleep
Yeah.
for like at least an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sleep, I need an enormous amount of sleep. Ben and I get up, some mornings we get up early and exercise. And so
Yeah.
I would like to be completely asleep by 10 o'clock at night. I would like to be getting ready for bed at 9 o'clock at night. And
Uh-huh.
between 9 and 10 o'clock at night is just don't ask me to think about anything. Don't ask me to make any decisions. Like a lot of kids, the kids will come in with medical problems infallibly after 9 o'clock at night. And I will
Oh,
say,
right.
unless you are bleeding, the doctor is closed. Like we are not discussing this now.
You're like Lucy, the doctor is not
I
in.
exactly, Lucy, the doctor is not in. Um, so we protect sleep a lot, and we've come this has come over years, right? Because
Yeah. It
I've
wasn't like it just worked.
I've
Yeah.
always needed a lot of sleep. I always go to bed pretty early and I'm a morning person. Ben is absolutely a night owl. And, as a graduate student and someone who like would pull consecutive all-nighters, he still pulls all-nighters sometimes when he's writing a grant or there's a lot to publish at work. And so sometimes if he's like, look, I've got to meet this deadline, or he's having a meeting with people in Asia and he's just on a completely different schedule, I'm like, great, tuck me in, love you, and I'll see you in the morning.
But I'll still try to like read a story to you, and then you help too, even after that, by even if I can sleep with you that night, you help by wearing a mask so that, because I generally don't fall asleep as quickly as you do, I can still, spend a little more time reading something without bothering you. So,
Yeah, so if your a sleep mask is a fantastic way to block out light, and we know that any light in the bedroom is going to affect sleep quality. So you can spend tons of money on fancy curtains and shades and blinds, or you can just have a sleep mask, which is
or both.
$10, right?
Yeah, and electrical tape helps. All these gadgets have little LEDs these days, so it's good to cover those up too.
Yeah, yeah. But we definitely have a bedtime routine, and it's kind of embarrassing, but maybe it's charming. I don't know. Like when the boys were little, Ben would read to everybody, and we would all pile in bed, and then everybody would get story, and then they would go to their respective rooms. And as the boys have aged out of storytelling, I, at 50, still get a bedtime story every night, and it's a fantastic way. It's a really loving thing to do, to read to somebody.
And you want to read a story that's like not new and interesting, but like well known and soothing, because you want to just be able to more focus on the voice and the familiarity of it all than like wondering what's next.
Right, exactly. So bedtime routines are important, but if you're a partner and you're listening and you're feeling this is hilarious, I'm never going to read my partner's story. Well, maybe you should consider it. But just think about, their sleep is so fragile right now. And so anything you can do to not further disrupt that, right? So if it's 4 o'clock in the morning and the dog is barking, can you just be the person who's going to handle the dog? Can you just say, look, I'm not going through the same hormonal shift. I don't have to get up 3 times a night and go pee. I'm going to manage the dog. What can you do to not further disrupt this already fragile sleep ecosystem? Because at least at our house,
spouse is happy spouse.
That's right. Happy spouse is happy home. Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that comes up a lot is, well, this is sort of funny to talk about, but we'll talk about it. Another thing that comes up a lot in the office is libido concerns. And then sometimes as the conversation goes on, there's really
in your office?
Yeah, like me when I'm talking to patients. Libido concerns that are rooted in resentment. And certainly after the pandemic, there is a lot of publicity around women still continuing to do a lot more of the domestic work. And I really feel like that just is a huge factor for everything, right? And as women are in this perimenopausal transition, a lot of times when people are working with me in the office, we're asking them to take better care of themselves, which takes time, money, and energy, right? If you need to go to the gym, if you're going to get a workout in, if you're going to go to yoga, if you're going to make real food, if you're going to meditate, if you're going to do some sort of active stress management, all of that takes time and energy. So where is it coming from, right? And so another part of supporting someone going through this transition is kind of looking at their domestic work or their parenting work and saying, hey, what can I take off your table, off your plate, so that you can go do these other things for yourself?
Yeah. So we share a lot of the domestic work, and we've sort of over time figured out which parts of that work are better fits for us temperamentally. So, for example, in the kitchen, you like to be in control of the creative work, and I'm quite happy to do the clean up afterwards.
So I'm kind of a freak show about what we eat. I cook
Yeah.
almost all of our food. My kids don't buy lunch at school. Everybody has homemade food almost all the time. And we don't eat gluten, we don't eat dairy, and we try not to eat processed stuff. And so it's a lot of work, but it's really important to me. And it's one way that I take care of myself, and it's one way I take care of my family. But I can make the dishes. So we have 2 dishwashers, and Ben will fill them both up every single night and fill 2 a day, every single day. So him cleaning up after me is not inconsequential.
All right. Well, I mean, you do a lot of work too. That's work. And
Yes.
you also do all the planning and shopping generally.
Yes,
So.
yes, exactly. But I think, again, when we're kind of thinking about as your partner is facing this hormonal transition, everything that used to work for weight management, for stress management, everything needs more attention now. You can't just wing it. You can't really just wing the nutrition. You can't really just wing the stress management. Everything requires a lot of focus. And so if you can, a really significant act of love is showing up for that person and saying, hey, how can I support you so that you can feel the best you can? So,
Yeah, and it doesn't just have to be the kitchen. It can be whatever, right? But
exactly.
maybe more than it was before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And
Yeah.
I think I can just say this for myself, and maybe other women can relate to this. Um, I think we certainly were not here maybe 10 or 15 years ago. We would not be having this relaxed of a conversation about these issues. I think for my part, I had to let go of doing it my way, right? So if someone is willing to help you, are you willing to accept that help? Or are you just going to continue to nag them because they didn't do it your way? So I think that was where, when I was finally able to accept the gift of help and realizing that it's a gift and I don't get to ask for it in a different size or color, right? Like, it's a gift. Just like, thank you. So
Yeah.
that was some growth that occurred over time that I'm grateful for.
Yeah. And it goes 2 ways.
Yeah.
Right. You make the food and it's good. And I'm pretty good at appreciating it, I think.
I think you are. Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah.
Um, so Ben, you're married to a gynecologist,
Yeah.
so there's you probably know a lot more about menopause than a lot of partners. But if you were talking to someone who wasn't married to a gynecologist, or a friend, a colleague came to you and said, my partner is losing their mind, what would be some advice you'd give, or how would you help them approach this time with an open heart and curiosity?
Well, I mean, I guess the general advice I would give is like, um, you've probably seen your partner go through other transitions, like a new job or a new baby or a move or something, where it's just clear that that's when they need some help. And main thing is to remember that's what's happening now too. And it may not be externally so obvious. It's not something necessarily coming from the outside, but it's more or less the same thing. It may go on for a while.
Right. So this is hard, y'all. Perimenopause can last 2 to 10 years. So yeah, pretty much long time, at least a decade.
And it comes and goes unpredictably.
Yes, there are waves. It is not linear. It is often sinusoidal. So
yeah. So just I presume you're a good partner, and so be kind and empathetic as you would be otherwise in those kind of transitions.
And then maybe take some space to take care of yourself too.
Well,
right?
yeah.
And so if your partner is losing their mind, and maybe they used to be a source of a shoulder for you to lean on, you might need to diversify your support circle a little bit so that maybe they're not as able to offer as much as they once were.
And it's always true of any kind of caregiver. You need to make some space for yourself too.
Right. Yeah.
And for one another.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks,
I love
Ben.
you.
Love you. Thanks for listening to Menopause Rescue. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast and it helps you create some time and space to make this the best half of your life. If you've enjoyed this content, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. This helps other listeners find this resource and rescue and restore their health. If you enjoyed this topic and want to learn more, check out our resource guide for this episode. If today's podcast resonated with you and you want to take a deeper dive, check out my educational resources. We offer basic membership, which is an archive of over 100 videos on menopausal topics ranging from bone health to libido. We add to this archive every month, so the resource becomes richer and richer over time. If you're looking for a menopause expert and live in North Carolina, take our free online class and see if we're a match for your needs. It's called Are We a Good Fit? And is a quick and easy way to learn more about our practice and what it has to offer. Hey, this is Dr. Watson. This is just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for general information purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine. No doctor-patient relationship is formed, and any information you get from this podcast is considered educational only. You should make medical decisions with your healthcare provider. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice. Listeners should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition, and they should seek assistance from their healthcare professionals.